guys, second video for the day. We're going to talk about the $2 trillion spending bill. Boy, this blew out, didn't it? It was supposed to be about $1.4 trillion at the start. The Democrats have pushed it up to about $2 trillion. Good news is it has, I believe it passed the Senate, but for some reason it has to go back to the House. But let's jump into it here. So the White House and the Senate leaders reached an agreement early Wednesday on a massive $2 trillion beer bug spending bill aimed at elevating the economy and impact the outbreak. At least we have a deal. After days of intense discussion, the Senate has reached a bipartisan agreement on a historic relief package for this pandemic. Senator Mitch McConnell announced from the Senate floor shortly before 2 a.m. on Wednesday. In effect, this is a wartime level of investment for our nation. Mitch McConnell said the Senate would vote on the legislation by the end of the day on Wednesday. House Democrat leaders said that they need to see the bill text and review the package before deciding whether to take up on it or not. The Senate was going to stand together and act together, and it's passed the historic relief package today, he says, addressed the chamber around noon on Wednesday. Struggling Americans are going to get their mailboxes and find full-figure checks to help with their bills. Why? Because the Senate stepped up. Shortly after, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who's a Democrat from New York, said the Senate floor, help is on the way, big help. Earlier Wednesday, Schumer said that while the bill was far from perfect, it had improved significantly to warrant its quick consideration. Overnight, the Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin told reporters that President Donald Trump would absolutely sign if Congress passed it. So it still looks like it hasn't totally passed yet. It looks like it is very much on the way though. But there is a bit of a drama about it because outrage. Pelosi delays vote on Senate's bill relief until Thursday. So Nancy Pelosi has delayed the vote on the Senate's beer bug stimulus package on Wednesday morning. So the White House and Senate leader reached a deal in the middle of the night for the massive stimulus package to bolster the economy for the beer bug outbreak. The package will reportedly contain aid for both workers and businesses. Hospitals will also receive significant funding. But Speaker Nancy Pelosi has no urgency whatsoever because she doesn't care about the American people. Pelosi delayed the vote on the Senate stimulus bill until Thursday because the Democrats had to review the provisions to make their decision. House Democrats will now review the final provisions, legislative text, and agreement to determine a course of action. According to reports, the House was only in session for 3 minutes on Wednesday morning and was gavelled out. Senior sources say the House won't meet again until later. So Senate is currently in meeting, working on plans to get the beer bug bill passed today. The text is supposed to come out on Wednesday, according to the two GOP senator aides who spoke to the Daily Caller. Pelosi is playing politics as usual. On Monday, the Democrat lawmakers introduced a gruesome 1,400-page bill loaded with socialist policies that have nothing to do with the virus. The Speaker's socialist wish list included collective bargaining, Green New Deal priorities, student loan forgiveness, federalized elections, including bail harvesting, immigration provisions, overreaching mandates on businesses, and more. But also the GOP have raised some concerns about it as well, as they were saying that this bill could encourage people to be laid off. Four Republican senators are warning that this will pose a fast-tracking the $2 trillion beer bug package unless a massive drafting error in the legislation, which they say would create an incentive for employers to lay off employees, is fixed. You want to destroy what's left of the economy, pass it the way it's written, Senator Lindsey Graham said in a press conference. If you want to help people, pay them their wages, but don't pay them more not to work. So the concern from Senator Graham, Tom Scott, and Ben Sesnick and Rich Scott, is the current version would pay workers more in unemployment benefits than they're currently making by sticking to a $600 a week payment on top of an ordinary benefits. They are calculated as a percentage of income. This could disrupt the labour market furthermore. So, a massive drafting error in the current version of the bill legislation could have delayed devastating consequences. Unless this bill is fixed, there's a strong incentive for employees to be laid off instead of going to work. This is an abstract point. It's an immediate real-world problem, said in a statement. The White House and Senate leaders had come to an agreement on the $2 trillion package that is designed to bolster the economy. But yeah, so basically what it is in the press conference, Tim Scott gave the example of someone in South Carolina making $20 an hour or $800 a week, who could get up to $326 of unemployment benefits in the state, following another $600 a week in federal benefits. So you add those two amounts together, they're making $800 normally off their job, but in benefits for unemployment, they would be making $926. So they're going to get more for not working, which is what they're suspecting here, is that if this bill gets passed, people are going to be like, well, hey, I make more money off basically being unemployed. Why would I go back to work? Right? I can literally sit at home and get paid. And that would have devastating effects on the economy.
I'm guessing it's by design, possibly, or just, ineptitude.
Yeah.
Democratic ineptitude, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it was kind of weird that it's kind of weird that Democrats passed this bill when they did, and it's sort of like, oh, hang on, it does make you wonder, did they see this as a possible design fault and think, yeah, we're gonna push this through. Hopefully the Republicans won't see it, crash the economy, and then we can blame Trump.
Well, there's a lot that they're not going to see. I believe that they're trying to push a 1,400-page document through.
Well, that's what the Democrats, their original bill was 1,400. That's not the ones the Republicans are pushing through, and that's not the revised version as well. We're not sure how many pages are on the revised.
But it's still, there's still a lot of ideological silliness that they're trying to put through.
Oh yeah.
Capitalizing on desperation, desperate times.
Yeah.
To try to do the, to try to push
What?
the agenda.
I'm not worried about data.
Now with
it's hard because the Republicans should just focus on getting an actual stimulus bill with no fluff, but the Democrats are just going to keep on delaying and delaying, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, obviously, look, at the end of the day, Trump's approval rating around this beer bug is around 60% now. It's gone up 5%. So a vast majority of people actually approve of the way he's handling the situation. But if he was to bring in a stimulus package that would crash the economy, they could literally use that to blame Trump because this was the Republican bill. So it does make you wonder, like you say, was it by design? Or, at the end of the day, did the Democrats not see it? Or, what? But, obviously at the end of the day, I would much rather them get the bill right and have it actually working right than actually rush through something that's going to crash the US economy. But, yeah.
Well, the economy's already being crashed.
Well, it's not as... Yeah, you also got to remember too that the US market has had 3 years of Trump, which has caused the economy to bounce along like a ball. So even with all these losses that they've had, they make references to it's the worst since the 2000. It's the biggest one-day loss since 2000. Blah blah blah. Right? But okay. But what was the economy before Trump? What was the Dow Jones before Trump? And what's the Dow Jones now? And I imagine there is very little difference between it.
Well, I mean, I would probably mention that the economy after Trump is more a product of stock buybacks, artificially inflating bubbles, and even before the Cerveza problem, I mean, the Fed had to start pumping liquidation in the repo market since like September last year. So, I mean, the economy was already going to crash spectacularly, and this beer thing is just a catalyst, really, just to sped it along a little bit faster.
So I've gone back 5 years, right? And so the max, it was up. It was up to around 60% or even higher than 60% of what it was normally. It went from 17.5k all the way up to almost 30k, right?
Yeah, stock buybacks are an amazing thing.
Yeah. So even after the beer bug, like if we bring up the market for the third of the second, so what was it? When did Trump take office? 2016, right?
Yeah.
So let's just go from around here because that's the average. So the open was at 1745. 1748, and close was at 17.5. So what is it today? It's still at 21. 21.2. So it's still higher than it was even when Trump first took office.
Yeah, although, again, I mean, since the beer bug came along, the Fed has been pumping trillions. It's all fake. Just so you know, I mean, the market's being high for the past several years, pretty much since the GFC. It's just been stock buybacks and funny money and Mickey Mouse and just a whole lot of fakeness.
I don't think it is. I really don't think it is.
You should look into the stock buyback thing. That is, I mean, that should be illegal for starters.
But at the end of the day, it's not. But it's not just that, right? The U.S. economy, for example, they've had how many people come back to work? How many manufacturing plants have come back to the U.S.?
Yeah.
All this affects.
Trump did a fantastic. He did a fantastic job with job creation. But as far as the actual stock market stuff, that was just. Yeah, I mean, hedge funds and all the crazy things that have been going on in the deeper economy, that's been just unreal. What we're seeing right now is more of a market correction, and I mean, the Fed should just let it happen. Honestly, the result would be better. Just inflating more balloons, it's just going to make things worse.
Yeah, like I said, I really don't think it's all just inflation. I think at the end of the day, it's also people have confidence in America. They have confidence in the American market. They have confidence in Trump leading the American market, and subsequently, a lot of people are like, well, hey, we can invest in the American market. Trump's doing a good job. Instead of going through and pumping all this money that he may have sitting under a mattress, for example. Instead of pumping it into the UK market, we'll throw it into the American market.
Yeah. Oh, it's not inflation. The bubbles are not inflation. That's when they artificially pump up a market, often with many different Mickey Mouse tactics that they do. But one thing you'll see as well, speaking of inflation, a $2 trillion bailout thing, and the hundreds of billions that have been pumping in daily from the repo since the beer bug came on. Because look, mind you, like I mentioned, the Fed was already doing repo injections since like September last year, because a major hedge fund broke. It just went. They went bust. They really stuffed up, and that's what happened with the 2008 crisis as well. It was hedge funds that screwed up and caused the GFC. That was just that happening again, and but then again, along comes the bee bug, which just speeds everything along. And I don't know if you've seen the articles that have been coming out from this, but I mean the Fed has been upping the ante massively. Like they were offering $500 billion per night in 3 months injections, as well as they added a few more. Like I think they added a 6 month one, plus the dailies. I think they're up to 500 billion as well. And recently, the guy who runs the Fed over in New York, he came out saying, you know what, we're just going to do unlimited. We'll just do unlimited repo, just to keep the markets alive.
What do you refer to as, what do you call repo? What's that? What are you referring to?
Oh, I'm referring to the nightly repurchase agreements.
All right, yeah. Okay.
It's when the banks trade amongst themselves to ensure there's plenty of liquid in the market. It's when money being liquid is when they have a balance sheet that's in the positive.
Right.
So people can actually take out loans and swipe their card. They get approved when they buy a Big Mac or something,
Yeah.
So, but the repos, what happened is when things break, all of a sudden, there's no money. So they will be insolvent. The bank will fail. Along come the repo and go, don't worry, Don. Yeah. They started off with 50 billion injections, and since the bee bug, it's been 500 billion times 3 on 3 different things they're doing, and they recently they upped it to a 1.5 trillion, and now they're just gone unlimited.
So I've got an article here from Market Watch. Repo market is broken, and federal injections are not going to lasting solutions. But what you're talking about. So Federal Reserve
and printing money at that rate for only maybe a couple of months will cause hyperinflation.
But once again,
the definition of tough times.
But once again, this is just one aspect of the market. Like I say, you also got to remember too is that when we're talking about the economy for the US, we're talking about a vast machine that is a lot more than just one aspect of it. For example, job creations, manufacturing.
No, this repo thing, no, that's actually at the core of it. If this breaks, when the repo breaks, the whole thing will crumble.
Yeah, dude, people have been going on.
This is the central core.
People have been going on.
I am serious.
I know, but people have been going on about the fucking market crashing for years and years and years.
This is new.
It's new. It's new every few years.
No, wait. This started in September, and no, this is very, very serious because this is actually at the core of the system. The repo is where the liquidation happens.
Right.
Yeah. Without the banks having the ability to actually have a balance sheet that has some liquid on it, there is no market. The whole economy grinds. So, for example, if Citibank cannot access a repo and not get its balance sheet positive, which is what's happening daily, basically the banks are bleeding dry. Especially now with bank runs, it's been making it worse because they're having to actually release cash.
Yeah.
And what will happen is if the Fed turns around tomorrow and says, you know what, we're cutting you off. There's no more repo. We're not injecting any money in here anymore. You guys are on your own. Then Americans will wake up, and when they go to swipe their card at the petrol station, it'll say, nothing. It will grind everything to a stop because there will be no cash available in the system. This is really bad. That's what I was trying to impart that.
Yeah, but like I say, dude, I keep hearing these doomsayers and all that sort of stuff, and I'm not saying this is a situation, but I keep hearing all these doomsayers going on about these end of the world catastrophes, and every year there seems to be something new. Like supposedly the Australian housing market was going to burst 5 years ago, and we still haven't had it. Like, and then, people make the excuse, oh, it's coming, and then, you're still waiting and waiting and waiting, and it still hasn't
not
come.
Not long now.
Yeah, people have been saying not long now for...
So the RBA has started injecting as well in the repo notes.
Yeah, we'll see.
They started it. They did 8 billion the other day, and I think they've done a couple more after that. Now, what this does is it's literally just printing money. That's what it is. It's just they just go type in a number and it'll debase the currency. So of course that means that the dollar coin in your wallet just lost 0.001 cent value because they just printed $8 billion out of thin air. So this is highway robbery, mind you. If Australians knew what the RBA is doing, if Americans knew what the Fed over there is doing, they're literally stealing from you by printing money like this.
And here's the silly thing: all these people doing bank runs. Guess what? That money that you're supposedly going to be doing bank runs on, A, it's going to cause that effect by doing it, and B, also, what you're going to do with a whole bunch of cash when the inflation goes up. Your cash that you've done your bank run on is still not going to be worth the paper it's written on. So congratulations.
I would still recommend get your money out of the bank.
No, I wouldn't. No, because this is what's going to crash the economy, dude. This is it. It's a stupid prepper argument. It's
going to crash, dude. It's going to crash anyway.
Okay, when do you think the economy will crash? Why? When do you think it's going to crash? What date?
All right, can I explain why? And no, I don't have a crystal ball to tell you the exact date and time.
3 months, 6 months.
Probably, I mean, so the banks, their stock market their stock prices have been falling pretty drastically as well, and that's causing huge problems for them, Obviously, the banks here in Australia have been holding more on their balance sheet since the GFC because they learnt a lesson, because we did do a bailout back in GFC, I believe. I think one of the banks, we bailed them out. So that they do hold more cash. But look, I don't know exactly when, but I can tell you this, okay? We're not doing bailouts anymore. The IMF, has been passing down, all of these things to all of the countries around the world. America's done it, Europe has done it, Australia has it in. We now do, I think, something called a bail-in. And what a bail-in is when instead of the government handing over several billions over to a bank when it fails, they take a percentage of your deposits. And here's the thing. If you notice how many times in recent months you go into your banking app on your phone and it comes up saying that you have to update the license agreement. And it's like, that's a little more often than it used to be. And that's because they've also since changed it, that instead of a depositor, being an actual deposit, you are now giving a loan to the bank, and that changes the rules. And so you are giving an unsecured loan to the bank. You put, say, $100 into the ATM and deposit it into the bank account, and that means that being an unsecured loan, they can then go, something, you lent us $100, but we failed the other night because we made poor choices. And now you only have $80 in your account. Good luck with that.
I haven't had to update my agreement in months.
Well, I have.
I haven't.
I've had to hit I accept, I think, 3 times this year already.
I haven't had to hit it once. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe it's implied. It could be implied. I'm not sure how they can get away with it, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
They would have to have done something because they've been passing laws lately. I mean, we also have the cash ban on its way. It starts off with a $10,000 limit, but that's not far away from being. They have a part in that $10,000 limit now, where they can actually pull that little piece of legislation out with an amendment, and then suddenly it's illegal for the bank to give you cash.
So
that's the thing.
Here's a list. So here's a list of all the times people have gone through and predicted the market will crash in the past 6 years. May 20th, 2010, June 4th, 2011, August 9th, 2011, February 24th, 2012, May 25th, 2012, November the 12th, 2012, 31st of March 2013, 25th of April 2013, 30th of May 2013, October 15th, 2013, November the 6th, 2013, July the 24th, 2014. Like, these are all the times that people have gone through, and I can't remember the crash happening
notice
once.
How they're all after 2008?
Hey?
It's just something funny I just noticed that they're all wrong, but I do notice they're all after the 2008.
Yeah, because this is from 2010 to 2016 market. This is just that range. And yes, there was a crash in 2008. Yes, there was. Right? The global financial crisis. But you throw enough darts at a ball, you throw enough darts at a board, you're going to hit it at least once, right? If I throw 50 darts at a dartboard, I'm going to get a bullseye hopefully once.
Yeah. The thing is that the crash in 2008, that they should not have bailed anyone out. That was the market doing a correction. But the fat cats in this world basically just went, something. Let's just let the federal banks just print our way out of it. And don't forget everything else I just mentioned earlier. Okay, bail-ins is now a thing. Your deposit is at risk. Right now, the stock market is falling and it ain't stopping. The Fed can try to repo their way out of this one. It's not going to work.
So the reason
you can't use a financial bailout for a medical problem.
So the 2008 housing market crash over in the US, the reason that actually happened, right, is because banks were lending money to people that had unsecured loans. But the actual real reason that a lot of people don't know, and I did not know this until just recently, until I was talking to my financial advisor, was that over in America, the Democrats actually pushed for easier lending laws when it came to minorities and people that were lower income, because everybody had a right to own a house. And what the banks were doing was the banks were loaning the money to the people that had no way of paying back the money. And that's what caused the crash, was the fact that over in America anyway, was that you had a bank that was lending out all this money to all these people that had no rate or no way of ever paying it back. And subsequently, when you started getting them dominoes falling, the banks basically had all this money that they had lent out. No one had to pay it back because of bankruptcy and stuff like that. And it basically killed the banks. Now,
that was only partial. There's also Lehman as well.
Now, that was told from me by a financial advisor who I trust because he handles my family's money. And he is really good. Yeah,
but don't forget the
really
Lehman
good
thing as well.
Hey?
The Lehman thing as well also was part of it too. The banks were already suffering massive. The house thing that we just spoke of was just another straw on the camel's back.
Well, all he said to me was about the housing market. That's what he said to me. He never mentioned anything else.
That was the last thing that broke the camel's back. That was the event that everyone remembers because it was the last thing to happen.
Well, if you want to blame anybody for the housing crash over in the US, it's the Democrats, because they were the ones pushing for everybody to get these housing loans. And
of course.
Because everybody has a right to a house. Well, no, people don't. If you can't afford to buy a house, you don't have a right to buy a house. It's stupid to lend someone $20,000 if they're not going to be able to pay that $20,000 back. But the Democrats pushed this through Congress and through the Senate or whatever it was, because they wanted it, because my diversity sort of stuff. It was, and
well, look, over here in Australia, the only party that's trying to stop the bail-in stuff and the cash ban that is going to lead us to basically, having a digital-only cash system is One Nation. They've been fighting this for the past several months. They did try to pass an amendment on the bill that would prevent bail-in. So it basically strictly states that a deposit cannot be used in a bail-in. But the Liberals, they blocked that, so they tricked One Nation, and they managed to get that through. So we are subject to bail-in right now, and this is basically the warning. I'm not saying that you're going to be bailed in. I'm not saying you're going to lose your money. I'm not saying that the system's going to crash tomorrow. But I personally, I practice what I preach. I personally removed about 80% of what I had in there. And the reason for that is simply that if you combine the fact that the banks right now can legally do a bail-in, use your money to bail themselves out, and you look at the stock market continuing to crash down, the banks themselves, their stocks are going down, that directly affects the bank's balance sheet. There is a risk, huge risk, and only just the other day, the RBA started injecting money on the overnight repos which is basically like a bailout. How long the RBA will do that is unknown, and if the RBA says not tonight, it's going to be your money that night instead. I'm just warning you now.
I like this one. In November the 9th, 2016, from Paul Kregerman. It really does look like President Donald Trump and markets are plunging. So we're very popular. We're very probably looking at a global recession with no end in sight. Now, he said that on the November the 9th, 2016.
There's somebody you should listen to. His name is Peter Schiff.
Peter Schiff. He's actually 30th of May, 2013. Peter Schiff. We've got much bigger collapse coming. I'm 100% confident of the crisis. We're going to have to be with much worse than we had in 2008. He said that in Market Watch back in 2013. Peter Schiff.
Peter Schiff predicted the 2008 one. He predicted Lehman Brothers. He predicted the housing, everything. Yeah, he's been right about everything.
Well, and no, he just said in 2013 we're supposedly got a much bigger crash coming, and we still haven't. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah. All he said was it's coming. He didn't say when.
Oh, okay. Well,
he just
yeah.
said it's coming.
I'm going to win Lotto one day. It's
But it's true.
It's very vague statements. It's like going to a tarot card reader.
Not really.
It is. They are vague statements.
The reason why people have been freaking out since 2008 non-stop, saying that this is coming, is because you just have to look at the bubble blowing, the constant, blowing up bubbles with funny money and hedge funds doing weird things and all the Mickey Mouse that's been going on. And another thing too is have a look at government debt. Government debt all over the world since 2008, it was flat, up and down, and then since 2008, every government on the planet has just been going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. That is something that is not sustainable. It will crash eventually.
One day there will be a crash. One day. But I'm sure as stuff not going to go down to the bank right now and draw out all my money on the off chance that it happens 5, 10, 15, whatever years down the track. That's where...
Not years, dude. We're down to probably months.
Yeah, 2013, they said the same thing. It's coming. It's
What's going to happen? One of these days, and it's probably going to be sooner rather than later, we're going to do a show where you are telling me how 40% of your money just went missing tonight.
Okay. I bet you we don't do that show within 6 to 12 months.
Why? Let me ask you this. Why has the Liberals been so bullish about passing this new legislation here in Australia about a bail-in and a $10,000 spend limit, and then all they have to do is pull a little tiny sub-clause out of that with an amendment, then suddenly you can't take money out at all, and we go completely cashless.
Because people are panicking. Because people are panicking.
That's because of negative interest rates, dude. Negative interest rates are just around the corner.
Because people are panicking. People are rushing down to their local ATM and getting all the money out. That's what causes a crash.
Actually, they won't remove it. Sorry, we won't get cash back after they ban it.
No,
Another
after
thing,
we ban it.
the
But we're talking
reason-
about before they ban it, right? We're talking about people
Yeah.
now going down
But
to the
they're also
local
banning
ATM.
Yeah, but they're also banning it because negative interest rates are on the way. Okay, when they cut to 0% interest, the only other direction to keep the markets from crashing is to start going to negative interest rates. And one nation, okay, is fighting that one too. They're trying to stop negative interest rates from being a thing.
So they've banned
But
cash
they
on
can't.
payments above $10,000 under proposed law. So people could be jailed for 2 years and fined $25,000 for just using more than $10,000 in cash in one transaction under a new bill being posed by the Australian Parliament.
Yeah.
Under the proposed
And
law,
the
all
tra-
tax transactions between businesses and individuals would be limited to $10,000. Any amount over this was considered criminal. It's to stop people from drawing out large amounts of cash and crashing the economy.
Well, actually, it's no. The government says that it's to stop the black economy. However, several major organisations and people like what you mentioned, economy guys. There was a record amount of submissions to the government telling them that there's no proof of this, you're lying, and basically calling them out and saying, no, the reason you're doing this is it's a stepping stone towards a cash ban, full cash ban, and then once our money is trapped in the banks, then the RBA can go, all right, it's negative interest rates time. And the negative interest rates is where you're paying interest in savings instead of loans.
So the $10,000
Okay, so
cash limit would not apply to individual transactions, such as private sales or second-hand cars.
Yeah. But focus on this. If your cash is effectively trapped in the bank, because this whole thing, okay, this $10,000 thing is only step one. You've got step two where they ban the cash completely, and then they go negative interest rates to keep propping up this bubble-ridden economy that we have right now. All of this high stock markets, stock buybacks, and everything they've been doing to artificially prop up the markets. All right, they're going to go negative interest rates, and when your money is trapped in the bank, you're then paying interest to have it in there. And that's why, because when they did this in Japan, people simply went, I'm not going to pay the interest. They just went to ATMs and pulled all their money out. Everyone just pulled their money out of the banks. And then they couldn't charge interest on them on the money. Now, they're not going to be that dumb again. So here in Australia, when they do it, and by the way, negative interest does exist. There's places in Europe that have them. And they didn't ban cash, and people are pulling the money out of the banks. And then it's causing major problems for the Deutsche Bank, for example. So here in Australia, they're not going to be that dumb. I'm telling you, dude, get your money out while you still can.
I'm not going to be a prepper. I'm not going to rush to the bank and draw out my money on something that could be 5, 10, 15 years down the track, because guess what? There's a lot of money that goes into my bank. Okay, 2021. So it's at least, what, a year away? How much money is going to go in and out of my bank account between now and then?
Well, what I'm suggesting is that I would pull it out now, because either you're going to cop a bail-in or you're going to have your money trapped in the bank. Either way, you're screwed.
Okay. I bet you in 6 to 12 months, nothing has happened. This current propping up that we've got at the moment is just because of this virus. And guess what? This virus, it's all going to blow over in a matter of a month, 2 months, 3 at the most. We're going to look back in July and think, boy, everybody was a bunch of panicking morons once this virus is gone. We're going to laugh at all the people that went out and brought all this toilet paper. We're going to laugh at all these people that have gone out and brought all this food, because guess what? They're going to be stuck there eating beans and rice for the next 6 months because they went out and brought all this stupid food. I really don't think it's anything big. And to be honest, people blabbering about it all the time, going on about it all the time, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. People advising people to draw money out of bank accounts, that will cause them to be right, because it will crash the economy. And that's where people are stupid and fucking suggesting this crap.
Well, you know what? I'm actually just finding it interesting that you're admitting that pulling your money out of the banks will crash the economy. Let me ask you this: Wouldn't it? What are the banks doing that's so bad that if people pull their money out of the accounts, that suddenly the bank fails?
Because at the end of the day, you have 20 million people and you have about four or five major banks. So, how much of that money do you think is with that one particular bank?
No, no, yeah, okay. It's not what you said. It's fractional reserve banking. So
No, it's exactly
basically,
what I've said. The banks have to keep a certain
no,
amount of stock. Dude, I used to work in finance. The banks have to go through and keep a certain amount of stock on a certain amount of cash on hand. But if you start having a whole bunch of people drawing through and panicking and drawing out all their cash, then all of a sudden the bank reserves that they have, banks keep anywhere from, I think it's around 50 to 100,000 on them, right? But if you get a whole population, a whole bunch of people going through and start hitting up all these banks and drawing all this money out, then all of a sudden the banks no longer have reserves. So they then have to go through and they then stop people drawing cash, which causes people to panic more. So more people then try and draw their cash out. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And like I said
yeah,
before, here,
but it's exactly what you just said. It's you just admitted it in your speech.
yeah,
You
a
just said that they
self-fulfilling
don't have.
prophecy. It's the
No, no, no,
people
no.
causing
What
it,
you said.
not the housing crash or the market crash.
No, no. You just said that they don't have the money.
Of
That's
course
exactly
not.
right because of
Do you know how
fractional
much?
reserve.
Yes. Do you know how much money is in the economy?
Yeah. Well,
It's
the
all
thing is,
numbers. It's all ones and zeros, right? We know that.
if you
That's
have
no
a
big secret.
if you have a bank, listen, if you have a bank with one customer and
Mm.
that one customer puts in $1,000,
Yes.
they then lend out 900 of that.
Yes.
And then if you want to go take your money back out, they don't have it.
Exactly, because they've lent it out to someone else.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because they commit a they do something that is illegal for anyone else to do it, but it's okay for them. Lending out money they literally do not have because of fractional reserve banking. They are actually doing something that would be illegal for anyone to do, but it's okay for them.
They invest it. That's what they do. They put it into housing markets. And by the way, FYI, Australia's banks, 80% of all money from banks is actually in the housing market, not the stock market. But anyway, but I was going to say, they go through and they invest. They invest in housing markets. They invest in stock markets. They invest in the economy. That's where your money goes. You go through. You have 1,000 people all putting $10 into that bank, right? That bank then has $10,000. They keep a certain amount on it on reserves, and the rest of it then goes into the market. Then guess what? If the bank needs to have all that money come out because everybody panics, then the bank has to go through and sell their assets so that they can get the money back to the people. Now, if you start having that on a wide scale, the whole market crashes because suddenly everybody's selling everything. Everybody's trying to get their money to give it back to their customers, which they can't do because as soon as they start selling off assets, everybody else starts panicking and everybody else starts selling off assets.
Well, maybe the bank should actually put your money in the bank and not be doing weird things with it. Just a suggestion.
That would crash the Australian economy because it's the banks that invest in projects. It's the these multi-million-dollar the multi-million-dollar buildings that get built like Q1 on the Gold Coast, or these new housing estates down in and these new high-rise apartments down in Sydney and Melbourne. These are done with banks' money. This is banks investing that money into that project so that when the houses are sold, the markets and the banks then get their cut. That's how they make money.
So the superannuation law, that's not enough. They need to have everything. I understand. I mean, because when you get paid super, okay, that goes over to the superannuation fund.
Yes.
And they, by default, they put, I think it's 60% into market, 40% as cash.
It depends on what you pick. You can pick it. You can decide.
Yeah. I feel sorry for all the people recently who just lost, hundreds of billions of dollars in that.
Well, only the people in the stock market. The housing market is still bouncing along.
No, yeah, but the people in Australia have already lost half their supers, like 50% down. A lot of people are miners. I had 22,000 still in my super. It's down to 12. I just checked the other day. I mean, it's bad, dude. I hope that they get their money back somehow. But you know, I mean, I should have called up the super back in January and said I want risk off, please. But I forgot to do that, so I lost 8,000 already.
How did you lose 8,000 in super?
Huh?
How did you lose your 8,000 in super?
The stock market crashed in Australia, did, and in the US.
Okay, so you've got a vast majority of your super in stocks.
66. I'm on medium risk. Yeah. I lost a fair bit.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, you've only lost it on paper, right? If the stock market recovers, those prices go back up, and your superannuation goes back up again.
Yeah. It's not helping all the retirees here in Australia. People in their early 60s right now would be sweating bullets. Poor guys.
But also, when you're in your 60s, for example, you have your pension, you have 300-400, whatever it may be, coming out of your superannuation per week, right? Even if it loses half the amount on paper, and it bounces back in 6 months, for example, then you're good, you're set,
Well, the thing is that I know it's going to sound callous, but I mean, the market going back down is a correction because everything is just the markets are hyperinflated. Not inflation, I'm talking about just hyperinflated markets. The housing market, for instance, needs to have a correction down to your average home that's about, say, $1 million right now. It should be down to 200,000,
No.
The housing markets are massively bubbled out here in Australia right now.
Your average house is not $1 million, dude.
Yeah, 800,000, 900,000 is pretty average.
No,
I mean, most people can't afford a house these days.
No, that's not true. That's only, dude. That's only in places like Sydney City.
Own a home.
That's only places like Sydney, and stuff like that.
No, out here too. I'm regional.
Yeah.
The houses around here are all 600 to 800. There's a couple $1 million ones. I see them all the time.
Realestate.com.au, right? Well, obviously we're not going to type your address in because that'll dox you. But have
a look at Newcastle.
Newcastle, okay.
House prices in Newcastle. That's regional.
Oh, dude, Newcastle is out of Sydney. Yeah, but Newcastle is a pretty major city area.
Really, it's regional.
Dude, I used to sell property for Newcastle. Right, so. Alright, so yeah, about 600 for the city itself.
Yeah.
That's for Newcastle City. That's Newcastle City.
Yeah, but after a correction, that would probably be around about what it should be, which is under 300.
Let's look at what's a suburb? What's a suburb in? I'm trying to think of a suburb that's like not in the city.
I don't know.
See, that's fucking Castle Hills.
What about Singleton or Buckets Way? Oh, sorry, Lemon Tree Passage. What about there? That's I know. Port Macquarie.
Dude, Port Macquarie's a major city. You keep putting up cities. Like,
it's a retirement village.
Dude, I know people that live in Port Macquarie. Okay, Port Macquarie is a huge housing boom right now. There's people that have farmlands that I know down in Port Macquarie, and they are literally sitting on a gold mine. Like, yeah.
There's a ton of old people up that way.
I know. But yeah, like I say, like, I'm trying to think of a suburb that's not major city, but anyway, we should probably wrap this up because we're going on for almost an hour, and I've still got another video.
I mean, Singleton is probably a good pick. That's very country. It's actually on a downturn right now because of the mining bust, the coal mine bust. that's occurring. So
I mistyped that, but Singleton anyway. Yeah, 400.
yeah, they're going through a bust at the moment because a lot of coal mines
200 for one.
kind of just stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is far from $1 million. Like there are $1 million properties, but 300.
I am talking about somewhere that probably no one wants to live. Just FYI, that place is basically turning into a dust bowl. People are leaving.
Mm.
But see, that's what a correction looks like.
There's one here for 150,000 for a spare block. 198 for a block.
I don't know if you can do that. If you can look at historical data.
No.
I think about 10 years ago, the Singleton used to be around the 500 mark. I don't know if you can. If you don't know how to do that, I don't know how to pull up data like that.
No, I can't bring up that sort of data. Not on this website anyway. But anyway.
Right.
But guys, we're probably going to wrap this here up because we've been going for an hour and it's we've got to get another story
Let's see what the comments say about our argument. That'll be fun. I'm actually going to read the comments later.
But yeah, I don't think the housing market, the housing market is going to crash anytime soon. It is overdue for a correction, yes, but I'm really not worried about it, and that's coming from someone that does own his own home, who has been able to buy his own home in the past 5 years. So this whole myth that you can't buy your own house is a complete load of crap. It really, really is.
Somebody earning say 55,000 a year is not buying a house anytime soon.
Okay, I'm not going to get into my personal financial situation, but I know people that have brought houses on less than that.
Oh, nice big 35-year long loan, I guess.
Right? Yeah, well, most loans that you get these days are 30, 35 years. So
our parents, on average, 10.
Yeah, but here's the thing. With a 30, 35-year loan, when you first take it out, yes, it will claim that it's 30 to 35 years. But you start paying an extra $10 or $20 a week, that 30, 35-year loan drops down to 10 to 15 years within 3 to 5 years.
Sure, I mean, and I guess they just don't spend that on that bread that they really...
Dude, if you're that close to the margin, you shouldn't be buying a house at all. If you can't afford to pay an extra $10 or $20 on your repayments, you shouldn't be buying a house.
I just want to mention there's also something pretty hectic coming soon, by the way.
Yeah.
There was a lot of loans being given out that are interest free on the homes. Some of the banks were doing this not long ago. That they're going to start paying interest soon, and I believe it's this year. A whole bunch of the first round of these loans are going to start calling in the interest. That's going to be fun, and that actually is entirely possible. One of the reasons why the RBA might have cut the rates this year. Well, they might have seen the bloodbath coming, and they thought, you should have a look at mortgage stress in Australia. Like the statistics on mortgage stress, it's actually quite alarming for the last couple of years, as well as credit stress. You might want to look at that too. It's actually quite alarming. We're on a trend upwards, and it has been trending up for at least 3 years now.
At the moment,
it's not good.
The housing, the interest rate it's literally listed here on the side here, and this is for investor home loans, but still, is 3.24% per annum, right? At the moment, the Australian...
No, the RBA cut it down to, we're down to 0.25, aren't we? Or 0.5 now?
Okay, but the difference is because the RBA cuts it down to 0.25, doesn't mean the banks need to pass it on.
ScoMo actually told them to do so.
Yeah.
Especially now with the new...
He can suggest they pass it on, but it's up to the bank's own discretion if they do or don't.
Yeah, well, if they don't, that's not very good.
Like if I type in Commonwealth Bank loan rate.
Actually, I don't know if you saw this. Did you see what the bill had, by the way, the stimulus? People with mortgages can pause their mortgages for 6 months right now.
Yeah, so say 250,000 for the... next. It's asking me a whole bunch of information about existing mortgages and stuff. I just want to know what the rate is. Home loan calculator. Let's see that. All right. At the moment, 2-year fixed rate or a comparison rate is 4.12%. Now, obviously, that rate will go down and has probably gone down 3 or 4 times since people have taken out their home loans, especially if their loan is a year to 3 years old. Now, the thing is that if your home loan goes down, if your loan repayments go down, people don't change your repayments. If you take out a loan and your repayment is originally $289, for example, right? But then the home loan rate drops down a good 1 or 2%, right? The banks can go through and they can readjust that loan to factor into the new rate. But here's the thing. If you don't do that, and if you keep paying that $189 a week, you're actually paying off more than the loan than what you actually need to, and that's when you start getting into your home loans down to a lower rate. And that, just by simply keeping your repayments at that higher rate and not dropping it, you can shave years off your mortgage.
Yeah, although
decades
Australia
even
has constantly been trending up on credit. Like, people have been spending on credit like mad for the past few years, and I suspect economical reasons. So if they have paid ahead for a while, they then start, pulling money out of their home loan. Like, you can do that. You can pull money back out, right?
You can pull money out, and especially it's a good idea if you want to go through and do like refurbish a kitchen or something like that. But if you're pulling it out because you want to go and buy a new car or you want to go out on a bender and have a great weekend or whatever, you're absolutely stupid. Well, like I say, you shouldn't be that close to the market anyway. But I was going to say, but if people pulling it, man. But if people pulling it out for stupid ass reasons, that's when they start getting problems, because they withdraw all that money out, and then if the market does go through like what we've got at the moment, it does go down, then at the end of the day, people have no safety net. Like my loan repayments when I had it, I had anywhere up to an extra $10,000 paid off my home loan. So if I ever needed a safety net, if I ever lost my job and I couldn't make those repayments for a month because I was looking for a new job for some reason I could never find, just say I couldn't find a new job, I could pull out some, $1,000 or $1,500 to pay those loan repayments while I was looking for a new job. And that's what you use it for. You use it for smart things. Most people don't have an idea when it comes to loans. Most people are stupid when it comes to their home loans. They really, really are. And I get very passionate about this. Yeah.
I'll mention this, and then I guess we can close it out because we've gone for over an hour. But Heiser says recently was actually looking at some mortgage stress and what's going on with the beer bar. And he was saying that how people were complaining, about needing the stimulus now, because there was going to be this 3-week delay when ScoMo first said, this is going to come out and the date is going to be, March 31 or something. And people were like, we need this now. It's like, so he was basically going, what's wrong with people? Why don't they have like a 2-week buffer, for a rainy day?
Yeah.
And he's like, is it unreasonable that people have some money stashed away? Well, he actually got flanked in the comment section. A ton of people were like, mate, do you have any idea what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck? Inflation, and my wages haven't gone up in years, and it's getting harder and harder to live, and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Electricity keeps going up, everything going up, but our wages don't. And exactly. And I saw the comment section was just full of people saying, look, be elitist. Like, most people just don't have it. Like, I saw one comment. People were saying that one of their credit cards is near full, just to eat. Like, people are doing it tough, man. I don't think you understand how tough people have been doing it the last few years.
Why? Why would I not explain? Why? Because what? Because
you obviously are doing well for yourself, but that's not a majority of people, man.
But at the end of the day, here's a question I have to ask: these people that are struggling and using their credit card to buy food, do they smoke? Do they drink? Do they go out clubbing or go out to restaurants? How often do they go out? if you're spending $140 a week on cigarettes, but at the end of the day you can't seem to buy food, here's an idea. Quit the friggin' cigarettes.
Well, again, man, you're just assuming that these people are doing something wrong.
No, I'm not assuming. My question is asking. My question is asking them, do you do this? That's what. So like I said, I used to work in finance, right? And the thing that the biggest thing that I would always get is people coming to me and saying, I can't live week to week. I can't afford my lifestyle, right? And I would sit down with them and I would say, okay, you're making $800 to $1,000 a week, for example, right? Great. Where's it all going? And they would sit there and they go, oh, well, it goes in electricity, shopping, blah, blah, blah. So you would sit there and you'd work it out and you'd tally it all up. And yeah, sure, electricity prices are going up. Yes, I fully agree with that, right? I think what the electricity prices in Australia are doing is criminal. They really need to be looked at. And also not only that, but rego, water, rates. I get it, man. I pay these things myself, right? And at the end of the day, I get it. I got my rates notice the other day for $800 and something for 6 months. It's like, holy sheesh, right? But what I was going to say was, but also these people that when I would go through and do the finance with them, they were spending $60, $80, $100 a week on cigarettes. They would go through and they would sit there and they would go out clubbing. They would go out for restaurants. They would go out to movies and they would they might be spending $600 a week on, for example, going and just day-to-day life. But that extra $200 or $300 a week was going into luxuries, going into that brand new car that they wanted or that brand new jet ski. And like I had one guy who was complaining because he couldn't afford his lifestyle. He was on $1,000 a week and he was paying off a brand new jet ski that he never used. And I'm like, dude, why did you buy the jet ski? And he's like, I wanted it at the time.
It's interesting that these guys are earning $1,000 a week. Most people I know, and when I was working, most people I knew, we were all on $750 to $800 a week.
Yeah.
And that was at like $24 an hour. I mean, most people did not earn that high. I mean, a lot of people are on 20 an hour, 19 an hour. And when you factor in like rent, because it's a lot of these people, I don't know anyone who owns their own home. Honestly, I think I'm not lying. They're paying like $320 to $400 a week on rent. Cigarettes, only one of my friends smokes still, but I mean, cigarettes used to be $10 a packet. Now they're $55. The government doesn't stop upping it. So really, the government's doing that. I don't know why. Just remove the tax on it. Just have a GST. What the hell? They call it the sin tax. Then you have foods going up. I mean, the other day, pork loins were at $13 a kilo. I was shocked. And I think that just your average steak was at like $22 a kilo. I was like, what the heck? I mean, when did meat suddenly become more expensive than gold?
Well, meat's always been expensive, man.
Not when I was a kid. Wow.
Yeah, but
I mean, you used to be able to buy a bag of T-bones for like $5. Dude, look, if you compare the last 10 years, or even if you want to go back all the way into the mid-90s, food, you could fill up a trolley all the way to the top, overflowing, and it'd be $100. Now you're lucky to just do $100 and fill a 1 or 2 bags, man.
Oh yeah,
and you have to feed the same number of people.
My average shopping bill is about $140 a week.
Yeah, that's insane. Eh?
Yeah, for one person. Yeah, one person in a cat. Like, it's absolutely insane. It really is. And like I say, there is an argument to be made for cost of living going up. Yes, I do agree. But also, I do also think that people that are struggling from day to day and that don't have any money saved up, you really need to look at your expenditures. You need to look at your cigarettes, your drinking, your clubbing, your partying, your buying your pork lines, for example, whatever it may be, your luxury items. And here's the thing: people these days, they don't want to go out without luxury. They don't want to struggle. They want everything. It's this instant gratification. It's like, oh my God, there's a new iPhone. I've got to have a new iPhone. Here's the thing: I've got an iPhone 5. It's had the screen replaced once, the batteries in it's been replaced once, and the thing, yeah, sometimes I feel like throwing it at a wall. But here's the thing, I haven't gone out and brought a new iPhone in 5 to 10 years. But all these people that are struggling, guaranteed they got a brand new phone.
Well, I wanna ask you this though. Mortgage stress as one factor has been steadily rising as a statistic, right?
Yeah.
Now, one thing that people do is you pay your loans first before you spend your money on the rest of things that you do.
Yeah.
Now, well, I mean that's what I did. I don't know. I had a car loan. I finished paying it off.
Yeah.
But I get paid. I pay the car loan, and then everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, we are seeing. Okay, look, there's another factor as well that people seem to get confused with. But boomers, right? They say that what's wrong with these young people, but when they were in their lifetime, everything was cheaper, but also, okay, they had less utilities. They only had electricity, and that was it. Electricity and water, sorry. But now you have, these are necessities, okay, and don't laugh, okay, you don't have these things, it's not good. You'll have water, gas, electricity, and internet, mobile phone.
Yeah.
One of these 5 things are missing, you're not having a good time. So we have more things, we have more bills, and generally speaking, I mean, like, I know people who are doing it tough. They live paycheck to paycheck. I've been there. I was paycheck to paycheck for about 3 years. I thought I was going to lose my car, and I actually only had 1 year left on the loan. I thought I was going to lose it because I lost my job because of economic issues and pressures and various things that the government doesn't do correctly. And I went from $26 an hour to $21 an hour. I then found another job at $24 an hour, and that gave me just enough buffer. That extra $3 gave me enough buffer to live.
But let me ask you this question. So let me ask you this question, just on that. That $21 an hour, how many hours a week were you working?
I was full-time permanent always, so 38 hours a week full-time.
Right, so you're still making $798 before tax.
Yeah, but from 26 to 21, it was a huge issue because I had factored in all my expenses at that level. Now, I did cut expenses. I cut quite a few things, but the car loan was still, it was expensive. It was a very expensive car. And it was actually cheap at 26, but at 21, it caused huge issues for me.
Yeah, there's a difference of about $200, $150 to $200.
Yeah, my pocket change was about $200 a week. So it basically disappeared. Yeah. I had to cut a lot of things. And see, the thing is a lot of people.
But hang on, my question is this. But my question is this, right? Even at 700 and whatever it was, 798 or whatever it was a week, you're going to tell me that your phone, your internet, your gas, electricity, and your rent was all around $800 a week combined?
No, I had a car loan and rent.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of things.
Yeah.
I was living on my own at the time too.
Yeah.
The thing is that like you'll see that some people, what happens is you get a home loan too, and people have been losing jobs. Or another thing too is employers are hiring less and less as full-time permanents and going casual. Yeah. And this is something that people do that's dumb, is that they see that they have an increased paycheck as a casual without realizing that you're actually just getting your leave payments as in your wage, and you should be putting that aside. That is actually something I will actually say people are doing wrong. Yeah, the full-time permanent is a downtrend in Australia because the government has made it so hard for people to be fired. It's actually ironic that if the government made it easier to fire people, actually people would become full-time permanents more. It's actually kind of funny.
Oh, tell me about it. There's a girl at work I work with. I'd love to fire, but I can't. But anyway. But we're going to wrap this up, guys, because we've been going for an hour and I need to edit this video out later to remove something. No, there's... Yeah. there's something that came up on the screen I want to remove. But yeah, so obviously at the end of the day, but guys, look, let me know your thoughts over in the comment section below. I really don't think we're going to have much of a downturn. I think this is all going to bounce back. And I think in 6 or 12 months, Satellite and I will still be sitting here, and he will still be predicting the end of the financial crisis, and I will still be sitting here.
I predict the bounce will be a dead cat bounce.
What's a dead cat bounce?
It's what we've been seeing in the markets.
Okay.
So what happens is it goes down. The RBA injects money, prints money to artificially blow the balloon up a bit more, and it goes up. But as soon as the markets open that morning, people are selling again, and so it's basically called a dead cat bounce.
Okay, yeah. I reckon it's all going to bounce back right after this virus whole thing disappears. And people have actually said that over in America, for example, the US economy, people are actually coming out and saying that the economy will actually bounce back right after this virus is all gone, because Trump does an amazing job with the economy.
Yeah, I think they refer to that as buy the dip, buy the dip. Yes, no, don't buy the dip. Buy gold, buy silver.
Well, actually, if you do want to invest in stocks and shares when the market is low, is the best time to buy. Mattel.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's a nice way to... No. If you're going to buy anything right now, get gold and silver, and not the paper one. Don't get paper and gold. That's artificially kept down. That's been manipulated by the banks. No, get real coal mines and silver mines are really good ones to get.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap this call up.
Real assets.
Because
real assets. The market's crashed.
We still have one more video to do yet, so yeah, we'll do that. All right, talk to you guys soon.
Okay.
Next video.